This is the Tom Bigby Tales, and I'm your host, Shannon Evans. I write about a small town in northeast Mississippi on the Tom Bigby River called Columbus. Sometimes I write about the rest of the state. Today's episode is untitled at the moment, but I'll come up with a good one. I think we shall just call it Nancy's Messes. Yes, it's another episode about our favorite local dilettante, Nancy Carpenter, and her lovely messes. On Tuesday, August 17th, at the City Council Budget Open Forum, Nancy Carpenter finally appeared before the council asking for that $54,069.69 matching share for the MDAH grant that she hoodwinked the mayor into signing. He also signed the MDAH promissory note on that same event on September 29th of 2023, just 2.5 hours before the grant application was actually due to be sent to the Jackson to meet the MDAH grant deadline. Now here she is appearing before the council after the fact. As reported before, Carpenter was asked by Councilman Jones, why did she wait almost an entire year after the match was required to ask for the money? She had no response except to say she got a $50,000 match grant from Mississippi Heritage Hills Alliance to help with the project, in addition to the $154K grant from MDAH. Wouldn't that Heritage Hills grant cover that promised match share, or almost? That whole requirement that the Columbus Cultural Heritage Foundation needed for the Tennessee Williams building for the MDAH grant? Or was Nancy lying to the council? If she really has that $50,000 grant from the Heritage Hills, wouldn't it be reflected in her correspondence with the city and MDAH? It's funny, it's not mentioned in any of the 666 pages. Yeah, 666 pages. There's something symbolic about that. I was sent from MDAH in my public records request. I went to the Heritage Hills Alliance website while at that city council meeting, and there's no mention of this wonderful $50,000 grant to the Columbus Cultural Heritage Foundation from them. So I looked for any announcements, and there were none. I did find that Nancy Luke Carpenter is still on the Heritage Hills Alliance board, although that probably won't continue since she won't have the $10,000 yearly sum to pony up from the foundation because they don't have any money. And she's still on the MDAH board as their vice president as well. I wouldn't suggest that there might be some improprieties and some conflict of interest, but I might suggest that I find this all very interesting. The city council had another public meeting about their budget for the coming fiscal year, and Carpenter appeared again. This would have been last Thursday. This time, she brought a board member with her. The council asked again about her request and if Carpenter had a copy of the mayor's letter and promissory note that he had signed back in September with her. She did not. So to cover her faux pas, she announced nervously if she gets this match grant that she needs, she would be throwing a grand reopening party at the Tennessee Williams home, and the council, of course, would be all invited to attend. Wait. She needs their funds to finish the work at the house, but she has the funds to throw one of her huge, overpriced, over-decorated, catered affairs? Tone deaf much, Nancy? I mean, this is the lady who throws around $350 for floral arrangements. She then launches in on how she has a $100,000 grant from the Heritage Hills Alliance for the building. Now I'm really confused. A week ago, she had a $50,000 grant from the Heritage Hills Alliance, and now another $50,000 has magically arrived. So she doubled her alleged match share need from grants and still wants $54K from the city. Okay, what's wrong with this picture? Now, I know how much Miss Carpenter loves to crow about her grants. So Why has she not sent at least a press release on a $100,000 windfall emergency grant from the Heritage Hills Alliance to the Dispatch? I mean, how did she miss such a positive press opportunity? That doesn't sound like Nancy. And why has Heritage Hills Alliance not announced their gift anywhere? Because I firmly don't believe there is a grant of 50,000 or 100,000 gifted out of cycle by Heritage Hills Alliance to the Columbus Cultural Heritage Foundation for the Tennessee Williams Building. If Carpenter has such a grand grant amount, she can easily prove it, but all she has to do is by publishing it in the paper publicly. I truly believe it's just another grand lie from Carpenter. Will the city council ask her how she still needs the 54K city match if she already got far more from Heritage Hills Alliance? But now, let's shift away from that fiasco and let's pay attention to another public records request I recently picked up from the CVB. I requested the CVB credit card statements that are signed by Nancy Carpenter. So many charges, so many questions. I have the 2019 through April 2024 statements, and it makes for very interesting reading. Shall I? Thanks, I will. Let's go back and let's start with some things that happened in 2019. First of all, I'm very curious why there are so many hotel bills. There are bills for Noetta's, Leaf Petal in Birmingham. And then she went to Trader Joe's, and it's marked off as a cultural heritage expense. And then there is the Cafe Chez Lulu in Birmingham, where she made two purchases on the same day, one for $101 and one for $63. There are bills to Kroger Marketplace, whatever that is, and a $500 charge to Broussard's. Funny that it's on Easter weekend. Then there is a hotel stay in Fairhope, Alabama, a $360 bill to Learfield. Isn't that interesting? In Mississippi State. Then there are hotels in Jackson at the Westin and the Courtyard St. Louis. Wow, I didn't know the CVB did business at the Courtyard in St. Louis. And then there are hotel stays at the Grand Hotel and Wash House Restaurant in Point Clear, Alabama. Those are really nice places to go. That Grand Hotel in Point Clear is just lovely. And then we had lots and lots of charges to Mississippi State's campus store and to Fresh Market. And that is just 2019. In 2022, I had a few questions. Let's see. There are quite a few trips to Walker's in Jackson, which is a nice restaurant, very expensive for $148. Gosh, that can't be just one person's bill. The Grand Marriott Point Clear for $700. And then there's a whole bunch of Amazon purchases. And then, I find it interesting that Nancy went shopping at Chevron when she had a monthly stipend of $1,000 for her car for things like gas and car insurance. So let's move on to something that I think is even more interesting. Perhaps the most questionable one that I can find in 2020 is Nancy stayed at the Gaylord Opryland Hotel and ate at the Pancake Pantry in Nashville to the tune of $130 worth of freaking pancakes and $1,000 at the Gaylord Opryland Hotel between New Year's and Christmas. Yes, our girl Nancy stayed at the Opryland Hotel on New Year's Eve and had a grand time at their New Year's ball party. It is quite an event to go to, I hear. I haven't been, but my parents have stayed up there, and I hear they always have a great band and they have a champagne brunch, and it's just all the fixins. Unfortunately, my parents pay for their own. She doesn't ask the city of Columbus and your 2% tax to pay for their stay like Nancy does. Then let's go on. During COVID, Nancy spent $300 at Broussard's. Gosh, what could she have bought? And then she goes to Maison de Loup in Ocean Springs and Courtney Farms, and she stays in a fancy hotel. Oh, that's over Thanksgiving. Imagine that. I'd love to go to Ocean Springs over Thanksgiving. And then on her way back, she stops at Walker's and has a very fancy meal again. And then, oh, while she was down on the coast, she bought a whole bunch of French kiss pastries to the tune of $55. Gosh, that's a lot of pastries. Nancy, I thought you were, be very careful of your weight and your sugar because that's a lot of pastries that can be bought with $55. Then let's move up to 2023. Now, in 2023, Nancy traveled an awful lot and she eats a lot at the Manship, which is a very lovely steak restaurant down in Jackson. I like going there too, except I pay for it myself. I don't put it on the CVB's credit card. There are charges to the Graduate Hotel, which is a very she hotel in Oxford. Good taste she has in where she stays. And then, of course, there's Nancy's personal subscription written off as research and education to the New York Times. Wow. You and I are paying for that. By the way, it doesn't get delivered to the CVB. It goes to her home. Then let's move forward to 2023. Afterwards, she charges quite a few things to the credit card, to things like the Quality Inn, and I believe those would have been funny that those are the same dates as the Arts and Antiques. So that's local, that's in Columbus. So 2 hotel rooms for $245 each. So that's 2 nights stay. And then let's see, she went to the Mulberry Inn in Jackson for 2 nights. And wow, let's see, she had to stay at the Oliver Hotel in let's see, Oxford for $190. So that must have been a 1-night stay. The Springfield Suites Ridge Travel Hotel for $164. Wow. But the most interesting charge is on October 5th, there is a charge for the Bi-County Farm and Ranch Supply in Holly Springs for exactly $5,000. Now, I don't know what she bought, but I find it interesting that it rounded up and the taxes and all equaled exactly $5,000. How convenient that that's exactly the highest amount she could spend without having to get it cleared first with her board. $5,000 on our credit card. Wow. Then perhaps the one that just chaps my behind is that there are lots and lots of charges to the Manship, to Apple. We paid for her iTunes account. Isn't that interesting? And we paid for a whole bunch of trips to the Westin and the Capitol Inn in Jackson for visits related to MDAH. And we paid for her to shop almost exclusively in Starkville. Most of her local restaurant investments are either at Harvey's in Columbus or they are all in, and of course, Broussard's in Columbus. She does go there on occasion, but the rest of it all appears to be in Starkville. Our tax dollars are not being spent or were not being spent by Nancy Carpenter in the local market area. She spent thousands of dollars each month out of the area. Well, I can't wait to get the receipts on and see how many lunches she bought. Like when she went to Broussard's, what did she buy and how many meals did she pay for? And especially that Opryland Hotel. That one I can't wait to see her explanation for what business she was conducting over New Year's in the Opryland Hotel. But we'll see. I wonder what will be uncovered, as there seems to be no end to these messes. How do you feel about her spending all of our tax dollars on frivolous things like extended expensive weekends at high-end hotels in the South? Until next time.